Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch channel on YouTube. If you make videos about politics, about spirituality, religion, conspiracies, you might want to watch this video. I'm going to explain to you everything that gets in the way of, if you have facts and evidence for something, everything that gets in your way to telling people, and why you have so much. It's sort of like what you preach to the choir all the time, right? If people agree with you, they agree with you. If they don't agree with you, we're never going to change their minds. One of the things that gets in your way right away is that you can't win arguments online. That's been proven. Unless a person's willing to change their own mind, you will never convince anyone of anything different. And that is because, first of all, the communication that happens online, you're missing all the normal subconscious body cues, that the body language that people have when they're talking in person. With all that missing data coming into the brain, first of all, you're already missing half the conversation. Then if you try to do it in a comment section on a YouTube video, you are like only communicating 10% of effectively, so you're never gonna get anywhere. And that's why trolls love to feed in the comment section. They may instinctively already know that, and they're just there to troll. That's what they do. But there are things that get in your way, significant problems, psychological problems that the brain produces, I guess, is designed to produce. Maybe to actually keep us from getting too far close to the truth. Maybe it's designed like a firewall. I'm not sure. But one of the things is the backfire effect. You've heard me mention the backfire effect in many different videos. And this is the effect where you show people evidence and facts, and they actually double down or become more obstinate in whatever they believe in. Now, where you can learn about this stuff best, amazingly enough, isn't even from psychology websites, because psychology websites will tell you about the problem, but they don't offer any solutions. But I found the only place that does offer any type of solution actually comes from the advertising, corporate advertising and marketing world, because these people have to deal with this stuff daily. And they have to try to sell things, which means they have to overcome people's biases, people's notions and ideas and beliefs in order to promote a product or fix something in the press, or try to do all that. So this is actually an interesting article, and although it deals with advertising, you can apply this to anything, and it shows you the backfire effect and some of the problems that it has caused in media, in marketing products. And as you read it, I'm going to actually throw in a whole new effect, a whole new psychological barrier that isn't even on any of these lists. I'm going to show you some big lists, and I'm going to link to everything in the description section below, so you can research this stuff on your own. It's morning here when I'm doing this video, so I may pause for a second every now and then and drink some coffee, but I'm going to keep going. Hold on. So, anyway, the lists are huge. This is just one list of cognitive biases. This is everything that gets in everybody else's way, and maybe in your own way. You have to understand that you may also not have all the facts. Your beliefs may actually be wrong, or your theory may be wrong about something, and you need to be as self-critical of yourself, which is something I did, which allowed me to change completely so many things that I had a premise of. Because if you have a false premise starting out with, if you don't have all the facts and evidence, or you're not looking at all of them, then you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. But assuming for a moment that you have a correct fact and a correct piece of evidence, you're looking to tackle all these problems when you're communicating to somebody that believes something different than you. All of this is in your way. Some of these more than others, but take a look at this list as I scroll down it. And as I said, I'll link to it in the description section below. You have social biases, memory and error biases, All kinds of, all this stuff gets in your way, and there's very little information available on debiasing from psychology sources. There's some, but the most effective way I found is from places that like neuromarketing websites. These are high-tech advertising sciences that is basically the uncensored mind control. You know, because the government has their manipulation, and media news does their manipulation and mind control, and then you have the advertisers who communicate with each other openly, and they have actually some. This article here tries to show people in advertising how to increase your sales by being aware and using cognitive biases. So basically, this is all how to use the biases in your favor, which is something that may interest some of you YouTubers out there who are doing videos in a certain way, including me. I'm a very rational, logical thinker, and I'm not very good at tapping into people's emotions to manipulate them. I just want to throw out facts and evidence, and I would like that to stick, but it doesn't really stick. It doesn't work. It doesn't have any effect. And here it is again, the backfire effect. Now, like I said, I have a new effect, a new delusion, if you will. And I've come up with my own name. I don't see it mentioned in any of these lists exactly, but it's the opposite of the backfire effect. I'm calling it the flamethrower delusion. The flamethrower delusion is where you think, and it's something I'm seeing on a lot of these articles when I'm reading about the backfire effect. They mention examples where clearly the person has wrong facts about something that they're using an example of. So the flamethrower delusion is where you think that the other person is giving you the backfire effect. And if this catches on, I want you to know the OVRWATCH channel on YouTube, I thought of it first, but this is where you're putting out what you think is facts and evidence, but you haven't looked at at all of it, or you have biased yourself because of one particular pesky little bias that gets in everybody's way, and that's confirmation bias. So the two big ones in my book are confirmation bias and the backfire effect. But confirmation bias is a let me bring up just a definition of that. Is basically where you think you've biased yourself against the facts and evidence, only looking for facts and evidence that back up your belief. Then you put that out there thinking that you're putting out facts and evidence, and then you get what you think is the backfire effect from people, but in actuality they're just countering your facts and evidence with different facts and evidence. And in which case, now you have the flamethrower delusion. That's what I'm calling that one. And I don't see that listed anywhere, or that kind of this thing I described listed anywhere. But confirmation bias, you know, you're out there and you are biasing the evidence you're looking at to match your belief. So this also gets in your way big time. It's that one and the backfire effect that cause so many problems. And if you're dealing with religion, spirituality, politics, anything that people have beliefs of, and they're emotionally attached to that belief, you are making YouTubes on video, exposing a conspiracy, and you may have actually exposed a genuine conspiracy, and you can make a 2-hour video with 108 points of proof of evidence that something happened that isn't what is the official story. And then you get the people likely to believe a conspiracy agreeing with you, and people that are likely to just block out all of that information because they have a bias against it, and they simply make fun of it. And you may have actually uncovered an actual conspiracy, but how do you get that? How do you make that change? What's the solution to all this? Well, like I said, the flamethrower delusion is the first thing you need to make sure you're not involved with. Like this guy here in this video, he talks about the worldview backfire effect. Half the stuff in this video that he talks about, and he talks about it in a way that he believes it, leads me to believe that he hasn't looked at all the evidence in the first place. And some of the things he's lumping in as the backfire effect are actually what I now call the flamethrower delusion. So, did you guys do all your homework? If you did, and you haven't biased yourself against the information that you're yourself, and you have to, this all has to do with ego. It has to do with I have experience. Some people don't have any experience investigating things. They think they do, but they don't. This comes from me because I have 25 years of law enforcement experience. And also, I went to college for 2 years, and I focused my college education on psychology. I was actually thinking about going into that field of work, but then I changed my mind and realized it wasn't for me. Namely because sometimes I just don't have patience to deal with the patients. But look, it's really a tightrope you're walking. How the heck are you supposed to know if you're biased yourself or the data you're looking at? I have proposed videos here that after I changed my mind on certain things dealing with spirituality and religion, and I point to evidence. I link to data. I always link to things on the bottom of my videos, usually that point to or show where I'm getting my source material from. I look at comments that I get. The comments, for the most part, well, if they're not, I'm going to exclude all the troll comments. But for the most part, I'm looking at comments, and if I see a lot of times people aren't even dealing with my points. They're not even addressing if there's any facts I point out, they don't even address them, which means more than likely they're the ones having confirmation bias or the backfire effect. It's not me. They're not giving me anything back to address that. Or in some cases, you have people that, when it comes to religion, spirituality, of course you have your atheists and you have your religious people. Now the religious people, at least they're operating from a point of view that they'll tell you some of the things, or many of the things, depending on what religion they have, are based on faith and faith alone. Now I would say if you're not careful, you'll drift into blind faith or corrupted faith, and you believe in nonsense. But I understand that some of the stuff in spirituality has to be on faith because you can't readily touch, measure, or observe certain things. You can't contain them in a laboratory. Doesn't mean that they don't happen, or there's not enough cases of something happening that's spiritual that it is credible and you can believe it. It's just that it's faith-based, some of it. So that's okay. At least there you're starting off from a point where the other person is telling you, well, I don't have evidence for everything I believe in. On the other hand, you have the atheists who bathe themselves in this false notion that they're the actual critical thinkers or the rational ones. They actually list a lot of this stuff on when you look at atheist websites. They actually list all this stuff as implying that they're not involved in any of these biases, but in fact they are. All the evidence shows that they when they argue, they fall into all this stuff, but they just can't even see it. So with the atheists, arguing with them, you're talking about that flamethrower delusion. They think they're throwing out all kinds of evidence, but you give them data, evidence, and nothing is good enough. They become pseudo-skeptical, not skeptical of what are facts and evidence. So, as from my point of view, I started off by being critical about what I personally believe, and starting from that point of view, I then reanalyzed everything, and I went over all these effects, and I started to see, yeah, you know what, I was doing this, and oh yeah, I was doing that. I definitely was doing confirmation bias. And in conclusion here, I want to say the little trick. I don't know if there's a name for this or anything like that, but the little trick or the thing I started to notice is, and maybe you do it too, when you have to shut out information, when somebody shows you a data, facts, and evidence, and you really can't counter it because you've researched it, and you know it's, and you have to go to like apologist websites, or you have to rush off to your favorite atheist website and read some article somebody wrote, and even though it doesn't contain accurate facts, you use that to try to support your belief. When you have to have that little argument in your mind as somebody's giving you data that you really honestly can't refute, at that point, you are probably subject to one of these biases. I don't know which one, but you'll have to research that on your own. But you're probably have some kind of cognitive bias going on that's preventing you from changing your mind and seeing the world in a whole different way. So when you can sit there and actually not have any conflict with yourself, that's a good start, good idea that you might be onto the right track. And part of that also involves accepting a healthy ignorance. See, there's a lot of bad ignorance out there in the world. Lots and lots of bad ignorance. A healthy ignorance is that part where, okay, I have a limited amount of information, I have limited understanding in these things, but I can separate at least truth from false and just accept the truth part, and then I can actually have a big box of unknown stuff. And that's okay. So let me give you some examples here. The evidence and data and facts, if looked at in totality, I'm going to speak about a spiritual matter now. So if you look at it in totality, it's clear, anybody that eliminates all the cognitive biases, that you have at least a limited truth, a very limited amount of factual truth that really can't be honestly refuted, and that is that near-death experiences, there are so many cases of veridical perception and all this other stuff that prove that consciousness is not a product of the human brain. There's something else going on there. And you can at least have that fact, and then other things like, what does that mean? What is the afterlife really like? Well, at that point now you start to diverge into interpretations. But we can't even agree on that simple thing. You can't even agree on that. And even in religions, they won't agree on it. For example, in Christianity, you have Christians that believe that you cannot have an experience like that because they have interpreted the Bible to mean that you sleep until the second coming. And that therefore, you can't be out of the body, you can't have a veridical perception. You see, and you actually have these Christians actually in agreement with atheists, ironically, who say you can't have that. It's an illusion because there's no such thing as a soul or a spirit. And you have the Christian that believes in the sleep doctrine that also says it's got to be a satanic lie, blah, blah, blah. And all these people are biased to the information available. And that's a fact because I've looked at all the data. I've spent years reading about it, and I have yet to see anything. I have looked at all the counter arguments. I have watched atheists conveniently distort facts or write in their infidels.org site, for example, distort information when they're trying to debunk this stuff, leave stuff out, brush stuff off. This is what you do when you have a cognitive bias and you're not looking at all the data. I have also become realized myself that the religion concepts that I had accepted premises from as factual unraveled as I was going through this process of debiasing myself. Now, everything before on this video is neutral, and you can listen to it, and anything I'm mentioning now about my own personal worldview is obviously separate. So don't get all put off by this part of the video just think if you find the first part useful, use it. And I hope this helps you. I hope all these links help you out, and so you can unravel this stuff for yourself. And that's it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time on the Overwatch channel. Take care.